hostel setup. So cool.
Yeah. So if possible, then nothing comes up at 10:30 and you wanna talk a little bit. Feel
Yeah,
free.
no, absolutely. See, I'll tell you. Basically, it's not so much as I think couple of there is lots and lots of shit.
Yeah, I understand. I understand
But
that.
but you know, I mean, at least half an hour will definitely do.
Yeah.
And I know the people are gonna start coming in from the next
Understood.
5 minutes. But I'm actually let me just tell them to don't come up till 10:30 for sure.
As I was traveling to Mumbai for India Film Project last weekend, I came across the profile of Nikhil Taneja, who's the festival director of the event, who I'm assuming is as old or young as me, who has been writing since a very young age, who has worked on various capacities in Yash Raj Film projects, who has served as a goalkeeper on the Global Advisory Board of Gates Foundation, and who is now running a media outlet called Yuvaa that is focused on stories bringing young India together. Through his content, I found Nikhil to be highly empathetic to the many traumas faced by the younger generation, and I wanted to have a focused conversation with Nikhil to understand why he's doing what he's doing and what it takes to operate at his level. So, how are you, Nikhil?
I'm good, man. Just one clarification. I'm definitely older than you.
That's okay.
But
It doesn't matter. That's why I just put in an assumption. But feel free to speak your age if you want.
I'm 33.
Okay, I'm 31 nearly.
Oh,
Yeah.
then I'm
so,
slightly older than you, but
yeah.
definitely older than you, as I said.
I have half an hour with you, so let's just
Sure,
get
absolutely,
to it.
absolutely.
So, first of all, you made my research pretty easy. You're so expressive on Instagram. You speak very deeply on your captions. I really like that.
Thank you.
You connect on so many different levels in terms of work, in terms of the things you're doing, and all that. So that is really awesome. So what I'm gonna do is I have your LinkedIn post in front of me
Yeah.
from last year, Feb 21,
Yeah.
topic on quitting and the pursuit of meaning.
Yeah.
So this was on the day you left Yash Raj, I believe. So I'm gonna read a
Yeah.
sentence and I want you to
Yeah,
reflect on
yeah.
that. So, okay, here it is. Over the course of the next few months, I want to explore everything that feels meaningful to me. Teach, learn, read, listen, write, direct, produce, talk. I want to explore things I've never done before, like podcasts, live shows, direction, give more talks, workshops, teaching, undertake fellowships, and anything else that gives me joy. Tell me, how do you reflect on that now? It's been almost 2 years.
Yeah, a lot of that has happened, touch wood, I would say. So I mean, I've obviously spoken a lot about my story out there, but just to cut a long story short, I ended up at a place in my life a couple of years ago where I had everything that you could possibly, you have people have this checklist as a middle class young person, right? You have a checklist where you're just like, I need a certain designation, I need a certain designation, I need a certain kind of lifestyle, I need a certain kind of money, I need certain kind of success, etc., etc. And at YRF I managed to actually find all of that. I surprisingly, for someone who's not actually from the industry or the media entertainment industry, someone who's grown up outside of Bombay, I managed in about 10 years to reach a very enviable position. If you'd seen from the outside, I had a glass cabin at Yash Raj Films. I was GM YRF. I had got double promotions. One of the youngest, digital, producers who had that kind of success behind them, and yet you would imagine that I had a verified Twitter handle, and yet you'd imagine that life would be absolutely amazing when you reach that position, and I did seem to be doing work that I like. I was not working in an IT job, quote unquote, which is why most people make movies and say that मैं engineering कर रहा था, IT में चला गया, तो मुझे छोड़ना, and then I had all of these issues, and then I had to find out who I am. I was in the media entertainment industry, and yet I had, yet every morning I would come to my cabin, I'd sit inside, and I'd realize that I have, my life is completely meaningless. That there seemed to be absolutely no purpose to what I was doing. I was obviously, even the content that I was making was content that I was meaningful. We made content on gender equality, we made content on sex education, we made content on transgender rights. So there is a lot of stuff that we did that was very meaningful, but I was doing it for the reasons of business, right? So I was doing it to make the company that I was working in money, and while there's nothing wrong with that, Yuvaa is also for-profit venture. I would feel very unhappy inside, because I'd be like, okay, we made a show about gender equality, but what is the follow-up? What is
Okay.
the action after that?
Okay.
Okay, people have seen that show and they're like, oh my god, I think something has happened here which is connected with them. And then boom, we move on to the next,
Yeah.
social issue. So you do something on transgender rights. We won a Cannes Grand Prix Glass Lion for the Six Pack Band.
Okay.
And then what next, man? Like what happens to the lives of the transgender singers who are part of this pop group? What are we doing with them afterwards?
Yeah.
And that's the structure of the entertainment industry, right? Everyone's doing projects, right? But I started finding it very unfulfilling, because I'd be like, yeah, we need to have some follow up. You can't just talk about these important things and then just move on.
Yeah.
Where is the action? What are we doing in terms of impact? And somewhere I would feel very hypocritical, because also I think the Bollywood industry in many ways is, while of course the idea of cinema and film is to make a lot of, is to have stories that sort of connect with people, that perhaps make a difference, perhaps impact people's lives. But by and large, it's become a very trade oriented industry.
Yeah.
Okay. It's always about 300 crores, 400 crores, etc.
Yeah.
etc. Having said that, let me just say that YRF has been the most beautiful professional experience of my career. YRF is home to me. They're some of the nicest people that I've met in my life. And yet, I would always just, as part of the Bollywood industry, I would see that this thought that, stories lead to, crores versus stories leading to impacting the lives of people.
Okay.
And that's where I one day just, I had panic attacks, man. I started, I had clinical anxiety, went for therapy for about a year. And afterwards, it just became very clear that I can't continue in the same way that I am. So at the peak of my career, I kind of quit YRF. I was doing enormously well, but I just knew that I needed to do more in my life. I needed to find out who I am, what is my voice, what can I do that is more meaningful to me as a human being. Took a sabbatical for a few months. That's when I put that post out that I want to try different things. I want to try things that are more meaningful to me. And since then, of course, it's led to Yuvaa, it's led to India Film Project, it's led to Goalkeepers, it's led to so many other beautiful things that I've managed to find solace in.
So Yash Raj is such a big production house, right? Obviously, if you're performing like that at Yash Raj, you must be very talented, very skillful. I mean, that's what you would assume. So what I find fascinating though, is that once you quit and you put your vision at hand, like on paper and on this post and all that, you actually pull that off in a couple of years. And in your recent post yesterday on Instagram, you kind of wrote the cost of it. What does it take, right? The price of passion, the other side of hustle, even doing meaningful work, like the cost it takes. So you've really pushed through that, but you've also delivered. Like, what is that like?
To be honest, so I didn't begin by thinking whether or not, I'm going to deliver on this or not. Honestly, when I took a sabbatical, I just wanted to take it a little easy. I wanted to, as I said, I had anxiety and I had clinical anxiety. I was taking therapy like not just once, sometimes twice a week. And there's so much that I understood about my own mind, and I so much understood about the way that I was operating. Kahin na kahin hota kya hai, I think in our society, especially when it comes to being men, right? Men are given when men are born, boys are born, they are pretty much given this thought that your entire purpose of life is to earn money. Your entire purpose of life is to get the next big thing, the next job, the next designation, the next thing. You have to be more successful. And I started questioning why. What is the point of all of this success that people are trying to accumulate? And I also started realizing, kahin na ki yaar, all of this success is in context, right? You could be the most like at YRF, you were the most successful Bollywood studio that was making digital at that time. But then Netflix came. And then suddenly you are just like, okay, and compared to them, who are we? And then maybe you might be sitting in Netflix. Now today Amazon is doing way better than them. They might be sitting in Netflix offices, which is the largest company, and looking at Amazon and saying, well, look at them, where are we? Amazon might be looking at Bhuvan Bam and saying, who are we? Bhuvan Bam is the most massive, influencer in the country. Karan Johar is posting photos with Bhuvan Bam. So success in context. Shah Rukh Khan today is like struggling to deliver hits because and he's Shah Rukh Khan. He's the biggest star in the world. But everyone has highs and everyone has lows. So this idea that we need that you reach a certain phase and you get a certain amount of success, and that's it, your life is set, and there's nothing and you're happy forever. That's a really stupid myth.
Illusion.
It's an illusion, right? So instead of then chasing success and more success and etc., why not chase meaning? Why not chasing the things that you actually like doing? So I was very clear that, I didn't have a plan of action. I didn't have like a, I in fact took a sabbatical without, I had a lot of offers, man, after YRF, and I just said no to all of them and they were giving me crazy amount of money, and and first of all I was just like, wait, I can't make this kind of money, this is crazy. But I knew for a fact that I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't know what all I wanted to do. So, and I knew that I didn't want to be another corporate setup, in Bollywood and work for profit. I knew I just wanted for a little while to find out all those things. So I met a lot of kids. Again, I did a lot of workshops. I made a lot of talks. I started consulting with the Girl Effect, which is a non-profit, international non-profit. I did a lot of work for goalkeepers with the Bill Melinda Gates Foundation, led to Yuvaa, and now 2 years later, I'm in a place where, and I've seen, man, when people, again, what I've noticed in these 2 years, it's not, again, when you say that, you've kind of delivered, I haven't delivered on anything in that sense, right? I've only gone behind my passions. I've only gone behind something that I find meaningful. And what I've seen is how beautifully the world has responded to this.
I just want to set some context for what I mean by delivered, because I watched you over the last week actually, and I've seen that you've hosted like about 10 interviews, is it? with the most prominent stars in India. And I know your week has been crazy. You're giving a talk tomorrow on this podcast. You've been on more podcasts. So that's what I mean, like based on what I'm seeing.
No, I know. But that's what I was just going to say. So it's a little bit to do with me, because see, my thing was, and again, I stopped chasing money, right? For a little bit at least. I knew that I have to make a little bit of sustenance, and fortunately with what we are doing at Yuvaa, there is sustenance. I was just like, what can I do that is going to be meaningful to me? And I put myself out there. I said, I have all of this understanding, I have all of this expertise in certain ways, and I just put out I put out a Facebook post after that where I told people that I would just love to come to colleges and teach. Call me, so, and people in Indore called me, people in Bhubaneswar called me, someone in Bangalore called me, someone in Delhi called me, and I said, great, I'm coming. And I just would go there, and I'd instead of spending like 2 minutes or 1 hours with students, I'd spend 2 days there. I went for my own sabbatical. I went to Shillong, I went to Amritsar.
When was that?
The same time, I just wanted to just...
So last year,
and since then, India Film Project...
So were you part of... You started Yuvaa by then or something, or it was...
No, Yuvaa had came a little later, in fact.
So you actually had a good exercise...
6 months I sort of just gave time to myself.
You weren't making money then?
Not at all. I mean, in fact, what's interesting is that money came, so I didn't chase it. But I to be honest with you, the amount of, after 6 months when I looked back, I was like, shit, I made exactly the amount of money that I would have made had I been in Yash Raj. And this is without me going out explicitly looking for money, because I was putting myself out there, with the intent of just doing something positive. And then people respond, you have to see, again, I won't say that if you're just starting out, this is going to happen with you. It's not going to be like you're starting out, you put out a post and say, guys, I'm happy to work with you all. Like, people are like, who are you? But fortunately, I had reached a kind of position in my life where 10 years of all the work and all this other stuff that I've done, when I was out there telling that I would love to collaborate or work on anything that I find meaningful, so many lovely people reached out, and that's how India Film Project happened, that's how Goalkeepers happened. All of these things have happened one by one, and today, 2 years down the line, I'm just like, I'm trying to find a way to say no to so many different things, because I see people responding, and I've realized, Salman, people do not, the myth is that people respond to success. I have realized people respond to passion. People respond to genuine authenticity. People respond to honesty. People respond to people who care about things. So I'm very bad at business. I'm very bad at making money. I'm terrible at making money. I have said, like, there are times that people are like, how much money you want, and I've quoted some that this, and they're like, and they've literally sat me down and said, please don't say things like that to anybody else, because people will take you for a ride. Like, how you don't even understand what the value of your thing is. I'm going to give you this much money, because please don't ever say that this is what you should get. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm very bad at this, but again, people have been kind. People are and it's because they see that the work that I'm kind of doing with all of them is not for the purpose of, again, me just getting out there or getting social capital, etc. It's because I care about the work, and that matters.
So it is really reassuring to know that even though you think that you're not good at making money as such, you're still able to pull in cash, which is fantastic. I think a lot of people I mean, that is a common weakness, right? Even negotiation is like a difficult deal for most people, and they still can earn money in different ways. Now, I want to find out about like how you're navigating your current situation, because you're so aware of your scenario in terms of the stress you're facing and all that. Still, you're like you have a busy schedule going on. You're working on a lot of things. So how are you navigating that with full awareness yet like so much on your plate?
It's tough.
Okay.
It's not easy. It's hard every day. You'll see what it says over here. The sun will rise and we will try again. That's my daily life, man. I mean, I'm see, it's very gratifying, and I also have a lot of gratitude for the fact that I am today in a position where I am getting to do a lot of things that I've always wanted to do in my life. I'm having great conversations with great people. I'm spending my time in the way I want to, without there is no part of what I'm doing right now that I have to do. It is the stuff that I want to do, and I'm having to sort of try and say no to people, or say like I have only 30 minutes, when even though I would love to have this conversation way longer, so I have to ration my time. But I think what I have realized is that it's a process. This is not something that you can this idea that you can plan minutes of your life, that you can plan days of your life, that you can plan hours of your life, or you can plan your entire life is have goals, absolutely. But beyond that, you have to go with the flow, man. There are times that where I say, okay, I'm going to only do this much at this point of time, and then sometimes I know that it requires more time, it requires more energy, it requires more passion, and then I'm all there. Like with India Film Project, again, there's very little money involved, but I love those guys, I love what they're doing, and they're a bunch of young people, and I just want to help and support. So even though my profile of what I'm supposed to do with them is like this, when I know that there's a crisis or there's something that's going on, I'm like, what can I do? So so the reason that I've done so many of the conversations is not because I've programmed myself for all these conversations. Is because somebody would drop out, something would happen, and I'll be like, chal main kar leta, koi chakkar nahi hai. So it's all of those things. You have to know why you're doing your thing, and then it's a constant struggle, of course. I'm married. I have a wife. She's super, super, super supportive. I could not have been doing like 1/4 of the work that I'm doing right now if she was not.
I think people need to hear that.
If she was not kind to me, she's fortunately, she has a great job of her own. She's doing great work on her own. But the fact is, before I started this, I sort of spoke to her and I said I would need your support for about a year. In this year you may not really see me much, but
she sees you on Insta stories.
Yeah, that's right. She sees me on Insta stories. I always joke about that. But I said, just this year give me, because I've been going through it. And she's seen me. She's seen the struggle. She's seen me go through clinical anxiety. Again, she was one of the major reasons that I came out of it. In that way, because of the support that she gave me. So I've told her that I need this for a year. Let me get to a good place, and then I'll start talking about balance. And now I'm reaching that place where I am working on balance. So I've started coming. I've started waking up a little early. I've started. While again, you look at me right now and you're like, okay, he's unhealthy. But now I have gotten this. I'm right now actually in a slightly more healthier place I was than 4 months ago. I've started getting up early. I've started going for walks in the morning. I've started trying to sleep on time. Yesterday night I slept at 11, man, which is great for me. But and I'm up at 6:30 every morning now. I'm trying to read books. I'm trying to take whatever little I know. It's not every day. I've given up this idea that I can always उठ कर ये कर सकता हूँ, because if I'm sleeping at 2 o'clock after I shoot, I can't do this I can't get up at 6:30 in the morning on that day. I'll get up at 7, but even if I can't go for a walk for half an hour, can I do something for 10 minutes? That just gives me a little bit of focus, a little bit of, so there is, I'm learning mindfulness. I'm learning. It's not easy. I'm failing every single day, but I'm at it, man, and that's what I realize. You have to be at it.
Okay, awesome. Now tell me about your work with Gates Foundation. Like, how did that happen, and what is that about?
Again, man, so I don't have I don't have any strategic answers of why something has happened in my life, because honestly I don't know how it has all happened. I was at YRF. We made a show for Project Everyone. Project Everyone is Richard Curtis's media organization. Richard Curtis is the guy who wrote and Notting Hill. He directed Love Actually, Mr. Bean. So he's a legend. and he started something called Project Everyone, and the whole idea of Project Everyone was to work with Gates Foundation and to work with United Nations on outreach and media awareness about the sustainable development goals that the United Nations has. They reached out to Yash Raj a few years
so it
ago.
was from the film industry itself?
Yeah,
or,
so it's a creative agency that is sort of helping work on social good, you know, to put it in a small sentence. They reached out to Yash Raj saying they wanted to work on gender equality in India and make like some sort of a content for it. We ended up making Man's World with them, which is a web series, the first web series he put out as Yash Raj. I was the producer on that, and I was the development head at Y Films at that time, so got an opportunity to work with a fantastic international team on something like gender equality. That became one of the massivest hits on the Indian digital space at that time. It was one of the first few hits, in fact. And the work that we did subsequently at YRF, whether it was sex education, Pappu Papa, Six Pack and transgender rights, Ladies Room, all of this somewhere accumulated, and they called us to this event called Goalkeepers, which is basically an international event where change makers and youth leaders from across the world sort of come together and to hear some of the most incredible. So like year one, when I was invited as a goalkeeper, the lineup had Barack Obama, Justin Trudeau, Malala, these are the kind of people.
No pressure then.
Yeah, man, Stephen Fry, Bill Gates. No, I mean, it was absolutely Melinda Gates. You had all of these people, on the same stage, and we were listening to them. And I was so excited about the fact that I was getting to be on something like this. I was so excited about the fact that I was getting to be on something like this that again, so the thing you'll realize about me when I like something, I'm just like, what can I do? I want to help. I want to be a part of this in whatever other way. So I ended up meeting Richard Curtis and I told him, sir, I love what you're doing. I love you. And he has been a massive reason why I even came into, it's not just something I'm saying. He's actually Love Actually is my favorite film of all time. So he was
look up to his
so
work.
so he was one of the major influences. So there was Aaron Sorkin, there was who was another brilliant writer. There was Richard Curtis, and then there was Andaz Apna Apna and Matthew Perry and Chandler Bing. These were the major influences for me to actually get into what I was doing, because I found like catharsis through comedy that they used to have, and I used to be like, if I can do half of what these guys have achieved or these people have achieved, I would love to sort of do that in my life. So I met Mr. Curtis and I was like, so what is it that I can do to help? Let me know anything. And he joked and he said, well, I'm going to make you do a lot of free stuff for us. I said, I will do it. And 6 months later, Project Everyone reached out, saying that they wanted to make a campaign film in India, the Goalkeepers campaign film. They said, would you be able to help us? I said, yes, of course. I started helping them. Then became a consultant. Then they said, would you like to produce? I was like, what is going on? I said, yes. And, ended up producing their campaign film. And it made a pretty big impact. They also ended up not doing it for free. They also ended up giving me pretty nice money, and which is so sweet of them, because I said, they're just too kind, honestly. And at the end of it, and then they gave this money, they were like, is this enough? I said, yes, please don't ask me, I'm embarrassed, so and then all the work that I had done with them and all the passion and I suppose enthusiasm that I had for the work that they're doing, when there was an opportunity, the first advisory board of goalkeepers, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation handpicked, they obviously invited for proposals of people who wanted to be part of it. I sent an application. And they handpicked about 10 people from across the globe. There's someone from China, there's someone I'm the one from the Indian subcontinent and Asia at large. There's China and Southeast Asia, and then the rest of the Asia is covered by me as a representative in some manner, which just somewhere always blows my mind. I'm getting to be on a board of the most incredibly what incredible change makers.
I can't even imagine.
When I'm sitting 10 of us are sitting, and I'm just constantly in awe of everything that happens in that room. Everyone who speaks up. There's some incredible women, man, incredible people from across the world. So yeah, again, there was no strategy, just one thing led to another. And
but there was no strategy, but you already told me, like, you met with the person you idolize, and like it was a journey,
always. See, one of the things that I have realized after a point of time is that I'm not afraid of putting myself out there. I'm very and with anyone who I admire, who I love, I'm just like, what can I do? I want to help. And it could be a young person. It doesn't have to be Richard Curtis. I've gone to I met Ranveer Alabadia, beer biceps at IFP, and I said that I love you, man. telling what I can do to help, and
Okay.
and you know what the interesting thing is, I'm seeing all of the stuff that I have put out into the world now coming back to me with Yuvaa. There's so many young amazing people who have just reached out and said what can we do to help, and I see that when you put out a certain amount of love and gratitude into the world, it sort of always comes back. But I've never been afraid of putting myself out there. I've never been afraid of just reaching out to people and saying, listen, I would love to find a way to work with you.
Amazing. No, tell me about what you're doing at Yuvaa, and like what do you want to happen out of that? What's your like really your goal out of
Yeah.
Yuvaa?
So it's a you are it's tough to put it in like a small thing, but okay, I'm gonna try. So so I was also a teacher for about 7 years while I was at I was a content creator by day. I was at Hindustan Times first, then I was in MTV India, then I was at Yash Raj. But all through on the weekends I would teach at a college called Jai Hind in Mumbai. And while I was a professor of journalism for them, but I would also do this one thing which I realized was like a magic trick later, where if all the other teachers, I would imagine, beyond a point of time, teach, right? I would try and learn, where everyone's talking to these students and everyone's talking down to them in some way sometimes. I would try to, I would try to listen to them.
I have teachers who have I have very bad memories with.
Yeah, man. So I have found that to be a little bit of a, so I just would try and listen. And someone I can tell you, the moment you give young people the respect of being heard, the moment you can give them the, just literally the kindness and warmth and say that, you know what, I know you have something to say and I know there's not anyone who's here to listen, but you know what, I'm going to listen. And the moment you say something like that to a young person, they open up, the floodgates open. I have had my students open up to me about everything from sexual harassment to sexual assault to rape to suicide, to attempted suicides to stress, depression, anxiety, all kinds of things that you can imagine under the sun. And I mean, one of the proudest moments of my life was when there was a student a few years ago who chose my class as a safe space enough to come out to the world as bisexual. So he had not told anyone until that day, and then he chose my class as the class to tell the world and says, well, guys,
wow. And that too, like on a classroom platform.
Yeah,
it's a huge thing.
No, so I realized so I realized two things. The kind of work that I was getting to do it was the most gratifying thing that I was doing as a teacher. It was when anyone, even today, when someone asks me what is the thing that you're proud of, I'd be like, I'm of being a teacher. I think I'm getting prouder every day with what Yuvaa is doing, but still I think my work as a teacher has been something that has given me the maximum pride, because I saw the impact that I could make in the lives of a few young people, not by doing anything major, but just by doing something as simple as giving them love, listening to them, accepting them who they are, not judging them, not putting labels on them. I've had students who are have had so-called labels like average or losers, and I've still given them equal respect and love as any other student. So given all of that, so I realized after a point of time when I had anxiety after YRF, during YRF, I realized that there are two things that, I was doing. There was this, my life as a content creator, where I was creating this content, which was kind of on social causes, and social entertainment that we'd call it that time. And then there was this entire life that I was leading as a, teacher, etc. And, after I did a lot more of this stuff after I quit, when I took a sabbatical. And then I realized somewhere, that I need to find a way of bringing my two worlds together, because that's probably the big thing that's lacking in this world. None of the entertainment that we have is really
actually, just to add something, through your first question, right, when you're reflecting on your LinkedIn post, I got this exact same feeling. So you had that, you kind of deep in, you had that vision from the get-go, kind of. Yeah.
Again, I don't think when I quit, I didn't have any vision, man. When I quit, I just quit without really thinking anything through.
I mean, it might not have been conscious, but in terms of what you're facing and all that.
Correct. I as I said, I was feeling very unfulfilled, and then I realized that I need to use my expertise as a content creator and as someone from the entertainment industry, and I used to and all the human all the humanity that I kind of found in myself when I was teaching. I need to bring these two things together on one platform, and that's where really Yuvaa came. So I have a friend called Amrit Pal Bindra. I have two friends, Anand Tiwari and Amrit Bindra, who I reached out to, not as for any other reason, but as friends. One day I just really, really, really actually upset and anxious and really like my head was spinning. So I met Amrit. I said, I need some time with you. He cleared his whole evening. He's like, oh shit, you look like you are in like some deep stress. So I went to him and I said, I want to do all of this. I just think what is happening with young people in this country, it's not cool. What is this, that. We are not seeing, we're hypocrites at Bollywood. What are we doing? Blah 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 blah. There's so much I want to do. Look at what we can do with the lives of them. So I said all of these things, and he just said, calm down, have water. And he said, give me some time to think of what you're saying, because I think you have some amazing things that you want to do, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to go about this, So he said, just, like, let me also think, and come back. And he's just really analytical, practical, amazing. He's a great heart.
So he helped you strategize.
No, so he that's why 2 days later, he's like, whatever you're saying, Nikhil, is not, it's not just, it's all you, but it's also a company, and maybe you should look at it like that. You should look at it as a company. And I said, I never ever thought of it that way. I said, who would want to do a company? First of all, I need money for that. I don't have money.
How much time in was that? Like,
this was again, I think about 4 months down the line.
So until then, you hadn't thought.
I had not thought anything.
Wow.
And then Amrit was like, I think it's a company.
And here you are with a verified company on Instagram.
No, so and it was I said, how do I go about this, man? I wouldn't have the first clue. And Amrit's like, what if I partner with you? What if I find the money? And I said, why would you do that? This is dumb. Like, what is wrong with you? I was anyway going through anxiety, and for someone to actually have the, I don't know, Amrit just genuinely changed my life in that moment, man. Someone who to have the faith in me at that time when I was going through serious anxiety.
Helpful, I think,
he was just like, I'll do it. I'll and then Anand and Amrita partners on a company called Still and Still Media Collective. So both of them said yes. So 3 of us have made Bang Baja Barat together. We made Papoon Baba together. So we've had successful collaborations in the part in terms of content. But really after that, it was on that day where they said, like, let's partner up in a larger way. It took me again some time to say yes, because I didn't want to, more than anything else, I didn't want to let Amrit down. I didn't want to, if I would accept something like this, because I'd be running it.
Did it feel like a feasible thought to you? Did you feel like this is something within
Initially,
your scope?
I was very scared and nervous. I said no almost immediately, because I said, I don't know if I can do this, because this is too much of a responsibility, and I was going through mental health issues at that time, and I didn't want to get back into running, and so it took me a little bit of time for him, but he was just very, he's like, no, and he was actually very kind. And after a point I realized, like, everything that I want to kind of do, a company would be able to help us do it at scale. And if I had to do it with anybody, who better than these 2 guys who I love, and who love me back. And so I eventually said yes. And the greatest thing about Amrit is, while he's managed to raise the money on something like this, while there's pressure on us to do better, it's always about doing better. It's not about doing more. It's not about profits. It's not about, business. There's always about impact. So we did something incredible, which I still can't believe we managed to pull off. I call it incredible because it was incredible. It is the most incredible thing I've done in my life.
What is that?
We said that, one of the things that I used to find very irritating when I was YRF is that कि मैं ना ऐसे कैबिन में बैठकर बोल रहा हूँ, मुझे पता है इंडिया क्या है, मुझे पता है यूथ क्या है, but we don't actually know, because we are in Bombay, we are not stepped out of Andheri. How the hell do we know what India wants, what is India's youth? So through Yuvaa, I and a few members of my team, at Yuvaa, we went across the country this year. We went to 26 cities. We went to 75 colleges. We was on the road for about 5 months. I think about 120 days I've spent on the road. Gone to literally everywhere, from Guwahati to Bhubaneswar to Shimla to Chandigarh to Cochin to, you name it, Bhopal, Indore, 26 cities. And we went and we met young people across the country. We met about 10,000 young people. And while I spoke to every one of them, I did like talks in those colleges, but I also listened to them. We had Baatcheet sessions, we'd call them. We also had, open mics in all those cities, where I would just ask these young people. I'd be like, unfortunately in our society, young people are only given the platform given a platform or given a mic when you have achieved something, or where you people feel that okay, your thoughts are valid, your opinions are valid. Why? Because you've achieved something. You're a topper, or you have done something cool. But if you're a human being, there is a brilliant story that you have. There's lots and lots of things that you've overcome. There's lots you've seen your life through. If you're a human being, you have a story. If you have a story, we want to listen to it, because that story matters.
Was this your research? Like
This is kind of right, but more than anything else, we were.
It is mission driven.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is research.
Set a framework for your.
No, it was. So
company.
that's what we wanted to do. So the 5 months we spent, it was listening. The listening is the research, right?
Yeah.
Because we listened, we came back, we were like, okay, we have all of this information now that we know. I've cried every day of on the road show listening to all these stories. I was like, I know what now these kids are going through. Here's all the problems that these young people are going through, and our challenge at Yuvaa was, how do we solve these problems? We can't solve these problems. I mean, that's not right. But how do we get young people to feel less alone? How do we at least get them to feel that, when whatever they're going through, they are together in this with everybody else? How do we create content that makes them feel heard, that makes them feel seen, that makes them visible, that makes them feel that I am not alone in whatever I'm going through? And that's what we've been doing. Every content piece so we are a content company, we are a for-profit content company, but every content we make is based on an insight that comes from everything we heard and lived through the roadshow. And this is not the only roadshow we're doing another one next year. We're going to do one every year. I'm going to go every year across the country, and I'm going to listen to young kids because I need to know what they're going through if I want to create content that is aimed at sort of helping them in some way. And again, I don't want it to sound like a very we are not saving the world, we are not saving lives, etc. But
you're understanding, like,
we're
engaging with the right.
We're trying. We're making a very small attempt in trying to have a little bit of an impact in the lives of young people. In a way that, as I said, can they feel less alone? Can they at least? They don't have friends. They don't have people who listen to them. They are so lonely. Today's generation is the most loneliest generation, and the reason that they are always on their phone is because they don't know who else to talk to.
Yeah.
Phone pe to they find company, but bahar dekhte company nahi hoti yaar. Everyone's judging each other. There's labels all through. There's no privacy, so there's all your information is out there. And the moment every person has a label attached to them. It's so difficult for young people to break out of this. It's so difficult for young people to find a kind ear or someone who just accepts them. And we want Yuvaa to be a platform that accepts everyone, that's inclusive, that has warmth, that is like a hug to young people. That's all we want there. If one person one day puts out one comment on Yuvaa and says, man, I felt good about watching this, I felt my life became just slightly better today, that's it. That's enough for us.
Awesome. I totally recommend the listeners to check it out. We are Yuvaa on Instagram, correct? And you can find the YouTube and all that from there. I've seen recent posts about body shaming and things like that. You've got a very good, interesting campaign going on, and I would imagine it's going to get much better. I hope so. With all this. Just along these lines, one quick question I have is, like, this intense research period, right? Like, it can be called a research period. Did it like fast track your formation of the company?
The company was already formed at that time.
Okay.
So we were, again, that's what I'm saying. It is incredible because also Amrit and Anand and the people that we sort of raised money from, everyone was so bullish about the fact that yes, you are right. Don't make a company about young people without really knowing who young people are.
Okay.
And of course, the answer to that research for people is quantitative, right? You send out a survey and you get information like, acha, ye hai young people. But how you can't take any of the surveys
that
at
is
face.
Funny.
Yeah, no, but seriously, you can't have people putting tick boxes and writing content writing something over there and saying, acha, this is, now I know their minds.
Like 3 people would have participated and it'll be in the board meeting.
Correct. Yeah, it's just so random until you have gone and heard the lives that these people are living, heard the stories of these people. How can you ever understand the opinion that they're giving on a survey? That opinion means nothing until you know who they are, what are the life they're living. And we have gone and heard their lives. We have open mics where we have recorded across the country. We have about, well, the sample size of the open mics might be 500, but in Bachi sessions where you were, every single college session that I had about between 200 to 500 people. Overall, I think about 1,000 people have spoken up about their lives. We have a survey of 10,000 that we have done, a numerical survey. But between this, the qualitative and the quantitative, we actually know why someone has given us a certain opinion. We don't take any of these opinions at face value. We now understand the lives. There's a lot of insight we have derived. And it's come because, we at a human level, we have tried to understand them versus looking at them as consumers or looking at them as numbers. Oh, we met, X number of people or X number. No, man. man. It's a lot of human beings. I know the names of all the kids who I've heard on the road show. I will never forget their names. I will never forget their stories. Even today, I'm in touch with so many of them. I followed all of them back because they are a part of my story now, and I'm a part of theirs.
Amazing.
You know, and that's the way we want Yuvaa to be. We call ourselves We the Stories.
Okay.
That we are all stories, and we want to put out every story as many stories as possible, one story at a time.
Love it. I'm really excited about staying tuned to what's happening here, like through your Instagram and YouTube and all that. Now, like, final question, like a question that I found you asking a lot of people is about self-care. Just your thoughts on it and why it is important, and what you advise people about that.
I always find myself to be a work in progress, and I think that's self-care is such a तो पहले तो कॉन्सेप्ट ही नहीं होता था सेल्फ केयर का, है ना. देयर वाज नो सच कॉन्सेप्ट एट सम पॉइंट इन टाइम, व्हेन यू वुड हैव पुराने ज़माने के अंदर सेल्फ केयर क्या पूरी you wouldn't realize, I suppose, but the idea of self care was the fact that अपने दोस्तों ने कपिल लड़ा लिए, या फिर रात को दारू पी ली, या फिर whatever, and no one really had time out for self care because you didn't live a life that was as intense as the life people lead today because of your mobile phone, because of the internet, because of technology. It's very difficult, man. It's not easy in the world that we live in. It's a tough world, and there is so much content, there's so much data, there's so much information every second that you are, अभी आप ये सोचो ना कि right now I've kept my phone down. Okay, but if I keep my phone this side and I look at my messages, there'd be like 10 things that I have to respond to, and I'm always going to be distracted. So I try and keep my phone down so that at least in the moment that I'm with you.
Yeah.
But
so do you define that as self-care as well, to be more present?
Correct, man.
Okay.
It's so tough today. There is just a volume of it. Like there's WhatsApp, there's Facebook, there's Instagram.
Venture capitalists invested on your attention.
Correct, absolutely. And there are X number of things that are pulling you in all directions right now. And how do you even find a way to as you said, be present in today's times, because you're the moment you get up, you're looking at your Instagram and saying, how many followers did I get, how many new messages have I got on WhatsApp since last night. Your day starts with there, your day ends on there. Your literal time that people spend with each other today, like at least couples, is watching Netflix. That's the activity I know most couples do before going to sleep right now.
There's a lot of joy in that, but
but that's what I'm saying. Like our entire lives have revolve around these screens now. And when you're constantly on a screen and you're not, what you're doing is, unfortunately, you're spending less time in person with human beings, and the lesser time you spend with people, the lesser time you spend in listening to them, talking to them, just being in each other's company without having to sort of be on the phone or being in front of a screen. Only then you sort of feel feelings that otherwise, what these screens do is, most of your feelings are you can't actually properly feel your feelings. You're not able to feel the full extent of who you are as a human being because your mind is constantly involved in some activity, and and that's why we need to now try and find time to take out to which is not spent in front of a team, not spent in front of a screen, where you are as you said, find a way to be present. Now, I try to do that a little bit by reading a little bit of books. Of course, I try and spend as much time with my wife as possible, where we go out and not be on Netflix or in front of our screens at all times. Unfortunately, a city like Bombay doesn't have many nature, which is just sad, But I would always, every time I've gone in front of the beach, or every time I've gone and taken a walk at like Worli Sea Face, or when I've sat in a park, it's just so joyous to have, just to be at fun with surroundings, spending time with our friends. Something, just having a great conversation with someone late in the night can be self-care. So just giving time to yourself outside of the screens that you have, giving time to yourself outside of the crazy work schedules you have, outside of all the to-do lists and check marks, and just doing something that you really want to do, just making time out for that, some hobby that you might have outside of the crazy life that you lead. So it's more to do with, I think self-care is just so much to, again, as you said very rightly, to do with being present and being mindful, without it sounding again very meditational.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about a routine where you have to do yoga, etc. Of course, but if you do yoga, that's great. But even if you don't, and that's not your life, find some time to breathe.
I love that. In fact, this is something like hits home with me. I mean, screens are a major, not just screens, distractions are like a big problem that I combat every day, and being aware still I'm not able to work on it. But I thought like investing a little bit on group workouts.
Absolutely. Different things work for different people. I just think that as long as you're not on your screens, and as long as you're giving time to yourself and people around you, in a more mindful way, I think that's good.
Fantastic. Love it. So Nikhil, where can people find you? And
everywhere, man. I'm like all over right now, but on Instagram, I'm most active on Instagram on Taneja Main Hu. I have to, for all those people who don't get Taneja Main Hu, it's a pun on Andaz Apna Apna's Teja Main Hu, Mark Idhar Hai.
Okay.
And when I started this handle, and it was 10 years ago in Twitter, and people would just be like, what a great handle. And now as I'm getting older, I just realized that none of the young people have any clue what this means, and they just think, what he thinks he's the only Taneja. It's like, that's not what it is. It's supposed to be a pun.
Okay.
But cool, like, Taneja Main Hu, and I used to always have a show called Film Companion called Awesome TV Show, where I'd end by saying Taneja Main Hu, Mark Idhar Hai.
Okay,
So
awesome,
am.
love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you
No,
want to add something?
And I just wanted to obviously just say that, but right now, like, all the work and energies and love and everything that I'm doing, I'm putting into Yuvaa. So while you have said it, I would just like to say it again. We are Yuvaa on all social media platforms. I hope that you're going to see all the conversations that we've had, all of those things and more, we're going to see on Yuvaa in hopefully a slightly more entertaining manner, in a manner that is going to be accessible to a lot of people. Just do check us out. I think
I'll link them up on the show notes and everywhere.
I hope that people can check us out, and then hopefully they find something that, again, as I said, makes them feel less alone or make them feel good about themselves in that moment.
Right. Amazing. Thank you for your
Thanks,
time, Nikhil. You
Thank
have
you
a
so
long
much
week.
for your time.
You have any question for me? I'm happy to.
No, I'm just, I just want to say that it was a lovely interview. It was such a joy to sort of have this early in the morning where, I've now had time to reflect. And that's why I love, I'm so glad that there are more people who are talking about the kind of issues that you've done your research, you've understood who I am and why I'm trying to do, and you have the right kind of questions. These are the kind of questions we need to have out there. I don't want to talk about just the shows I make or the content I create, etc. These are the more important conversations. The conversations about failure, conversations about being present, conversations about self-care, conversations about what is success and what is not perhaps success, or what are our ideas of success, because in our society we have been so conditioned to only think in one way.
Yes.
There are so many boxes that
Unfortunately, the education system also is designed like that.
Man, if I get started on that,
I know.
So, and we now need more people to start acknowledging that there's a lot more to life than the way that society and the conditioning and education system has taught us. And these kind of conversations will help, man. And I'm so glad that you are doing a podcast where you are having these kind of conversations. So thank you for that.
So great to hear.
No, absolutely. And anytime anyone says thank you for your time, I'm just like, listen, you decided to give your time to this as well, and that means a lot to me. And again, let's not glamorize the idea that just because I have a company or I've done something, that my time is worth more than yours. It's not, man. Your time, you fucking come from all the way over. You've worked with your schedule. You're giving. You feel that whatever I have, whatever I'm saying means something, and that first of all, I'm really grateful to you for that. For you to feel that, and thank you for giving me your time and thinking that I am worth everything that you're doing in your life for that 1 hour that you've taken out. So thank you.
It totally is. I love the conversation, and I was really keen on this because I've even heard you speak before, and this is really important. The kind of perspective you have, the kind of experience that you bring through your journeys in teaching and all that actually was very valuable.
Thank you
So
so
it,
much.
it,
It means a
it
lot.
really good work from you, and I think you should feel good about that as well.
Thank you, thank you. I just also want to say I'm a little low energy right now because I've
No
been
problem.
ill for about a week,
Okay.
and so I've been living on Allegra and anxiety.
No.
But hopefully the next time we chat, I'm gonna be a little more in my element. But still, I'm just so glad I could have a chat. Thanks so much, man. Thank you so much.
Have a great week ahead.
Thanks, Salman. Thank you, thank you. Best of luck for your podcast. I'm really
Thank
excited
you.
about this now.